People born under the sign of Gemini often have a reputation for being unreliable. This is generally not intentional, but stems from certain tendencies, such as losing things or forgetting promises. Geminis frequently struggle with time management, especially in relation to others. When inviting someone to a meeting or starting a conversation, they may overlook whether the other person has free time or is willing to engage at that moment. In addition, Geminis can sometimes come across as superficial and calculating. Their opinions of others can change rapidly, often shifting in a negative direction. Therefore, anything Geminis say should be taken with caution, as duplicity can be part of their nature, and they may betray your trust. One of the most notable traits of Geminis is their unusual charisma and magnetism, which easily attracts others and can make people fall in love with them. However, it is wise to exercise caution and maintain appropriate boundaries. Moving on, Geminis often have difficulty making final decisions. One of the most common criticisms of Geminis is their indecisiveness, and this stereotype holds some truth. As an air sign, Geminis are talkative and changeable. Their desires and emotions often pull them in different directions, making even simple choices a challenge. At the root of many of their negative traits lies a capriciousness that Geminis continually struggle to manage. Life demands decisions, and Geminis frequently doubt whether they have made the right one. Although Geminis are not prone to overthinking every step they take, this indecision complicates the process of choosing, sometimes turning it into a serious problem. While all Geminis may experience doubt about their decisions, the most unhealthy among them can take this to extremes, occasionally paralyzing themselves with indecision and allowing others to decide for them. Furthermore, Geminis are known to be some of the most anxious signs of the zodiac. Who hasn't experienced anxiety when questioning the correctness of their choices? Though their fickle nature contributes to frequent changes of mind, the primary cause is often fear of making a mistake. Geminis are aware of this tendency, but often find themselves trapped in a vicious cycle, exaggerating the consequences of every decision, which in turn increases their anxiety. More mature or well-adapted Geminis typically develop coping strategies to manage their worries, though this process usually involves trial and error. Younger Geminis, or those who have yet to find reliable coping mechanisms, may resort to unhealthy habits in an attempt to manage or escape their anxiety. This not only affects them personally, but can also have a destructive impact on those around them. Regardless of whether they have learned healthy ways to cope, their internal experiences of anxiety remain a constant challenge. Geminis, by nature, tend to complicate their own lives and must learn to coexist with this anxiety. Geminis are also known for their sarcasm. One of the ways Geminis often cope with difficulties is through sarcasm, which is hardly surprising given their quick wit and natural charisma. Their ability to produce clever remarks makes them prone to a sarcastic style of communication. While this is not inherently problematic, sarcasm can become a defense mechanism, sometimes leading to harsh comments that hurt or alienate others. This tendency is worsened when sarcasm is used to mask their anxiety. They may joke at inappropriate times, be sarcastic when sincerity is expected, or come off as rude. More mature Geminis often learn to consider the impact of their words before speaking, although this awareness usually develops through experience rather than conscious intention. The good news is that Geminis can change. The bad news is that it requires significant effort and time. Geminis can be quite materialistic. Typically, Geminis are among the most materialistic signs of the zodiac. Material possessions, things that can be seen, touched, and experienced, offer a tangible sense of security, especially when self-doubt surfaces. They appreciate beauty and enjoy indulging themselves, but over time, reliance on material things becomes an unreliable source of happiness. For example, if they are worried about something, buying new clothes or gadgets may not change their circumstances, but it provides a distraction and leaves them with something beautiful to enjoy. Geminis recognize that new phones and cars do not inherently bring happiness. Nonetheless, such possessions can help them focus and find comfort during difficult moments. People born under the sign of Gemini often have a reputation for being unreliable. This is generally unintentional, stemming from their natural tendencies, such as losing items or forgetting promises. Additionally, Geminis often lack a good sense of timing concerning others. When inviting someone to a meeting or initiating a conversation, they may overlook whether the other person is available or interested in chatting at that moment. Furthermore, Geminis can sometimes appear superficial and calculating. Their opinions of others can change rapidly, often turning negative without warning. Due to their duplicity, an inherent part of their nature, anything a Gemini discusses should be approached with caution, as trust can be betrayed. The primary risk associated with Geminis is their extraordinary charisma and attractiveness. They possess a magnetic charm that easily draws others in and can make people fall in love with them. However, it is important to exercise caution and be mindful when sharing personal thoughts or feelings with them. Moving on. Geminis often face difficulties when it comes to making final decisions. One of the most common criticisms of Geminis is their indecisiveness, which is well founded. As an air sign, Geminis are inherently talkative and changeable. Their desires and emotions frequently pull them in different directions, making even simple choices a challenge. At the core of many of their negative traits is capriciousness, a tendency they constantly need to manage. Life is filled with decisions, and Geminis often doubt whether they have made the right choice. Although they do not tend to obsessively overthink every action, this indecisiveness complicates the decision-making process, sometimes transforming it into a significant obstacle. All Geminis experience doubt about their choices, but the most unhealthy among them can become paralyzed by this uncertainty, sometimes allowing others to make decisions for them. Proceeding further, Geminis are also among the most anxious signs of the zodiac. Who hasn't experienced anxiety when questioning whether a choice was correct? Although their fickle nature leads them to frequently change their minds, the primary cause of their anxiety is the fear of making mistakes. They are aware of this tendency but often find themselves trapped in a vicious cycle. They start to magnify the potential consequences of each decision, which only heightens their anxiety. More mature and well-adjusted Geminis often develop strategies to manage their worries, though this process usually involves trial and error. Younger Geminis, or those lacking effective stress coping mechanisms, may turn to unhealthy habits in an attempt to suppress or ignore their anxiety. This trait not only affects them, but can also have a destructive impact on those around them. Regardless of whether they have learned healthy coping strategies, their internal experiences of anxiety remain significant. By nature, Geminis tend to complicate their lives needlessly and must learn to coexist with their anxiety rather than constantly battling it. Geminis are also very impulsive. This trait completes the picture of the more challenging aspects of the Gemini personality. And like many of their other characteristics, it becomes clearer upon closer examination. At first glance, one might assume that a person who overthinks and doubts every decision would be extremely cautious. However, in reality, Geminis often make impulsive choices without fully considering the consequences. From their perspective, constant overthinking and doubt can be exhausting, and sometimes they simply need to say, let things be as they will, and act spontaneously. One way they try to silence anxious thoughts is by making decisions at random. This impulsiveness is a core part of their nature. While this is not the most effective way to cope with challenges and often backfires, it remains a consistent trait worth understanding when interacting with a Gemini. Although Geminis are often seen as flighty and unpredictable, they are actually one of the easiest signs to understand. They may be less consistent than many other signs, but they will always be sincere with you. Gemini's tendency to overthink is at the root of many of their difficulties. Their overanalysis, especially when it comes to their own decisions, makes choosing difficult and often creates feelings of anxiety and fear. These emotions are frequently masked by biting sarcasm and a persistent desire for material comforts. Most, if not all, of Gemini's negative traits stem from unhealthy ways of coping with inner anxiety. While their struggles might seem inevitable when viewed as a chain of traits, Gemini's flaws are actually among the easiest to overcome. If they can learn to manage their anxiety, Geminis have the potential to achieve remarkable success. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like.